Today's video is all about wiring. We have made a first gen wiring harness for one of my 65s. I'm probably going to make a few more. I wanted to show you what we were doing here. Unfortunately, my camera can't take it all in at one shot. Let me see if I can get it a little bit better. There we go. So, if there was ever an issue with these vans that was a big pain, it's these wiring harnesses. The original ones were never really good at all. I'm sorry. The wires that they had were inadequately sized. As an example, the wire coming from the alternator over to the battery is only really rated at 25 amps. Now, if you have a 37 amp alternator like what they had originally, then I can see that. But those 37 amp alternators, once they go in for rebuild, they automatically go up to 63 amps because of a change in the way they wire them internally. And the recommendation for alternators is 95 amp. So, and it's actually, if you look at the test sheet, they're usually coming out at about 105, give or take. So, I wanted to go across this a couple of times. First of all, here at the battery, we are doing 4-gauge wires for both the ground and the hot. We're also doing a 2-gauge wire from the positive of the battery over to the alternator. That's going to easily handle a 100 amp alternator. And the specs for wires are typically taken when it's at a given temperature. And that is not where these wires live. I've seen temperatures as high as 250 degrees under the hood, sometimes even higher. I've had split loom melt, and that's supposed to be rated at 300. That's over on the hot side of a 6-cylinder. So on the negative side, we're taking one lead from the battery and then taking it over to a lug, which we weld onto the frame, and then from there over to the clutch bell housing. These other lines, these bigger lines here, are going all the way over to the fuse panel. That's why they need to be nice and long. So this should handle 100 amps, which is what this fuse box is rated at. So it's got, one we chose is like a Blue Sea model. It's got 12 circuits, and the original Chevy van had 6 circuits, so we're going to just duplicate those on one side. And then all these other 6 circuits, they're going to be available for whatever anybody wants to put in there. Fans, accessories, you name it. And this is also one of my favorites because it's got a nice positive lug there, which they're all going to have, but it also has a ground lug. So you take all of your grounds and you bring them back to this fuse box. Makes real important item if you have some like high-end stereos or computers, or maybe you got an LS installation, and they got these computers that just are really finicky if you don't have proper grounds and the right power to them. We've also tried to make sure that we include as many of the ends of these wires as possible. So we're using and in some cases reusing the instrument bulbs and some of the connectors that we can't find. This is a new one, but we want to send this out in a really complete state. The bulbs are going to be 1893, the GE style, which is a little bit better than the original 1895s. They're a little bit brighter, and they definitely have a much longer life. They're considered heavy duty. And oh yeah, on that fuse panel, their choice was regular fuses, circuit breakers, or these kind of fuses, which they'll light up if they're blown. So it makes it real easy to identify. We're also going to make it a special location that will allow the driver to access this fuse panel very easily. So we'll show some of that later. So just want to show you all of this. Got it all labeled. And some of this, you guys want to take this in, that's why I'm doing it nice and slow. All the original colors were reused. All of the wires were increased in size from the original to one size larger. So if they had like a 14 gauge wire, we would go to 12. So just definitely one step up. Once again, because this wiring harness lives in a very harsh environment. Under that hood, that doghouse cover, it's just crazy how much heat you get in there. The other thing is we've used marine boat wire, which is tinned to resist corrosion, and that's going to provide a nice long life. We did not make an accommodation for point style ignition. We figured if you're going to be putting in a whole new wiring harness, you got to have an HEI. So we did that. And we also added a little circuit breaker right near the distributor so that the HEI is protected. And it also makes it real convenient to be able to check to see if there's power getting to it. So we're planning on adding an LED to make it even easier, but we're trying to find the right long life one. So this is the wiring harness just for the first gen. The second gen is going to be a little bit different. They have a different routing. You know, the pass-through bulkhead connector is under the driver's seat, whereas on the first gens, it's on the floor, real near the heater in the center. And so we made this so that it can be in one piece. We eliminated as many connectors as possible that could cause any kind of corrosion. The biggest one on the first gen is the one that connects the engine harness with the chassis harness. It was real easy for these factory guys to install this engine and then just hook up a wire, but that connector is notorious for causing all kinds of problems. So anyway, there you go. That's our work. Took first one took quite a while, and the second one didn't take quite as long, so hopefully we can get our speed up so that it's a little bit more reasonable time frame to get this stuff done. So anyway, there you go. First gen wiring harness. Okay, this is the wiring harness that we're going to be installing. This is one of the many test fits. So it's not the completed version. Not all of the harness has the loom on it. Some of them still has the bare wires. Once we have this positioning on these wires finished, then we'll go ahead and finish the loom, installing the rest of the loom. But this is the way it's going to come. The fuse panel and the instrument light bulbs are going to be wrapped up. That's just to make sure that they don't get scratched during the installation. And then after that, then we'll go ahead and take those off after they're in the proper place. Same thing with some of these. Anything that's got blue tape on it is just on there right now so that it'll make it easier to install. We don't want any of these connections or T-fittings where the wires split to get caught on anything. And so that's just to make it pass through some of the different places easier. So the wiring harness gets done first. What we'll do is put it inside the cab and then feed it through the hole that they have for these first gens. So this one only applies to the first gen vans. And after we have this harness completely routed, then we will go ahead and route the heavier cables, the 4-gauge cables that go up to the fuse panel from the battery box forward, which is the opposite of us installing the regular wiring harness. So anyway, we'll show you how that thing is going. Okay, this is how it looks when you start the install. The instrument column's got to come out, and we route the bulbs and the fuse panel over the top of the steering column mount, and then just let the rest of the wires just lay there on the ground or on the floor. So the magnet that's attaching to the fuse box will hold it in place. We don't want to drill that in right now. We do that later. Right now we just want to lay out the harness in a certain spot, and like we said before, when we have that paper on there, that just protects the fuse panel from getting scratched during the install. So the next step is to route that harness through the hole in the floor. Okay, this is the view from underneath the van, looking toward the grill, of course. And this hole where we pass all the wires, what we want to do is we want to pass the turn signal housing, the rubber portion of those through there first, makes it a little bit easier. And then for the driver's side, we just want to route it right along the grill and onto the other side. This one doesn't have the turn signals, but right there. Just kind of get it close. We don't want to hook up anything right now. We want to make sure that the routing is correct. So this is for the brake light switch. You can plug that in or just leave it right now. The other side, for the passenger side turn signal, just goes through the front there. Once again, right along the grill, and then up and through, or up there near it. So once this harness is completed, there'll be no bare wires. We'll have that all in aluminum and taped up. So the other thing that you want to do is make sure that they're at least near these retainers that the factory has. We'll bend those back later, and then the routing is going to go basically to that other bent hook, or that bent retainer. So right now we just got it temporarily zip tied over here, and then we run it up through that little triangle fitting that the heater hoses go through. This is on the passenger side and is like part of the radiator mount. So there you can see that. And then it goes up alongside the radiator, and here's where it really helps to have an assistant, so you don't have to go back and forth a bunch of times when something's hooked on an obstacle. So we'll run that through to the engine compartment, and then stretch that out before we get any tighter on anything else. Okay, once you've got that wiring harness up to the side of the radiator, then just stretch it along the back, starting on the passenger side and then along the back there. After this is where we'll take some of that blue tape off that was just holding the wires together to make it easier to pass through some of these restricted areas. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, this is showing the routing of the two heavier cables, the number 4 gauge cables from the battery box. Basically, what we want is for those to be along the frame rail and through the same hole that the rest of the wiring harness went through. The only big difference is that on these, we are going to route these much closer to the passenger side upper frame rail. And we are going to catch these top two here and here, wire retainers, and get those up real nice and snug, right up close to that. The original harness is going to take the original routing, which was down the center, to this other clip right here. So, yep, that's about it. Now let's go up top.